Hey ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. I'm not going to make a long story out of this. I'm going to tell you straight up. 2019 Grand Caravan. I made an error in judgment on this. The vehicle was towed in here 2 weeks ago. I should add that. And the problem was there was nothing happening in the transmission going forward. They had a little bit of reverse and then that went away. It's whining like crazy. And I suggested to the customer, since they shut it down right away and all that good stuff, I suggested to the customer, let's drain the fluid and look at the filter. Well, I did. And the fluid and filter, the fluid was dirty. This thing only got 80,000 miles on it. The fluid was dirty. The filter pretty much stopped up. So I replaced it. And I've driven it around here for a while. And it seemed to do perfectly fine. And then it did fine for them for a little while when it started acting up again. So needless to say, a lot of people changed the front pumps, torque converters. The customer don't want to go that route. And I wouldn't want to go that route either. I would rather replace the whole entire transmission. And that's actually what's going to happen. However, I found a very low mileage transmission in a salvage yard for a fraction of the cost what it would have cost us to put a reman unit in it that may or may not work either. So anyway, long story short, like I said, this thing is getting a transmission. I'm going to bring you along. We'll get the transmission out of here, get the other one put back in, fill this thing up, and hope for the best. But anyway, this thing here, the customer did opt to go for the extended warranty on this from the salvage yard for labor and the transmission, of course, for $12.12. So we're going to slap her in there. So start by opening the hood, obviously, remove the front wheel, and we'll go from there. So now this transmission should lower perfectly fine through the front here. Because there is no subframe, I'm going to remove the battery, and the overflow tank gets lifted out of there. Very easy to do. I might, for just for the giggles of it, I might actually undo this coolant hose, plug that off real good. We'll go from there. Battery is removed. We're going to remove the battery tray. Like I said, we're going to lift the overflow tank out of here. That's all just in an effort to make more room, make it more visible. It's not a big deal, so we're moving forward. Today also marks the day that I'm going to have to say goodbye to my little Kubota monster. The tractor is a little bit weak in the knees, so I've opted to upgrade to a little bit bigger model that's got a little bit more ump when it comes to lifting my equipment around and all that good stuff. So, all right, one thing real quick before I go any further. You got two options. You're going to have to get the drive shafts out of here to remove the transmission out of them anyway. So, got two options. You can break apart your strut from the knuckle, or in my case, what I'm going to do, I'll leave all of this hooked up, and I normally can push the strut over a little bit, disconnecting it on the bottom, but you'll have to break apart the bottom, the steering rod, and I normally also take the stabilizer linkage. I'll loosen all that up. My case might be a little bit different than your case. It might, when you're working on a jack, it all changes. I don't know, so I can answer that for you. And also, there is not necessarily a sequence to what I do. I mean, if I have to go up and down one extra time, it doesn't bother me. Whereas if you're pushing to get it done and make more money or whatever the case might be, then yeah, service information probably be a good thing, because they got it listed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in those steps, and they normally tell you what all you got to do on top of the vehicle, and then they list what you got to do on the bottom of the vehicle when it's ready to come out. So anyway, that being said, moving on, I'm gonna pause you back up. I took both of the axle nuts loose, 32 millimeter. Like I said, I will not be removing this knuckle from the strut, so I'm going to loosen everything else up. Stabilizer link, steering rod, and a lower control arm. All right. Mind you, folks, don't lose those. I don't know why these here look so pitiful, truth to be known, but anyway, long story short, don't lose those. Everything is loose here. Note there is a subframe down here. Couple of 16 millimeter, I think 16 millimeter headed bolts, I believe it was. And these pop out, and then you got 18 over here on the front frame. So take your subframe assembly out. We don't have to do or undo the exhaust. I don't believe I didn't do that the last time. So moving on. Oh, I should have said that early on. Drain your transmission so you can put your drive shafts, pull your drive CV axles. Reach over. You can reach over the top of here, I do believe, with a swivel and a socket to undo the carrier bearing that sits right there. Sorry for yelling in the camera again. But as you see, both sides equally loosened up. The frame is apart. There is a cover here. We'll roll the engine and take all the bolts out of the torque converter. I'm going to do a quick... No, I'm not. We're going to wait till later. Let me pause you up. So people don't go ballistic. Right there. You can fold this back a little. There's your damper. You can get to it from right there. You don't have to remove the plastic. Just figured I'd throw that in there. I'm going to pause you back up. 27 mil. Next stop, and like I said, not necessarily in order. Boom, right there's a torque converter bolt. Loosen that one up. Go to the next one. Keep turning until you see a hole. Then you got all the bolts out. Reach in there with something. Slide your torque converter far back as it'll go. Start off with that. Remove some of these bolts out of here. All right. There's a lot of year models are going to be the same way, but I do believe on the older ones, the exhaust piping is different, and some of them have to be removed. Some of them you don't. So I don't remember the year models, and if you have one of them, well, you know. I'm not going to mention this on the install. Remember, these bolts have thread locker. They're not really expensive if you want to get new ones, and they'll have new thread locker and all of it on there. They don't have to be replaced, but you can. Funny thing, I'm not saying anything. I was talking with somebody, I said, yeah, these Chrysler transmissions, they're relatively easy to remove. And the reply to it was, yeah, because they fail all the time. Free tip, if everything goes good, everything is free and clear. There's 4 bolts in it to spill the beans, okay? There is 4 bolts in it, but by the time you put the last one, pull the last one out, the torque converter will already start sliding back, as this one did here. That's almost all the way to the back, I believe. It is all the way to the back. So, that being said, you know, you won't even have to spin to the next hole. You'll know immediately when you have them all out. Figured I had that in there. Mount, very easy to get, right in the front there. A couple of 16 millimeter headed bolts. These here, I think these bolts are all close to the same length, if I'm not mistaken. We're not going to find out. I'll stick them back in the body, lay the body down somewhere with the bolts in it. That way they don't get lost. Anyway, and I hate to keep wailing around on the dead horse, but I say it all the time. I'm going to say it again. If all else fails, there's a transmission laying over there. Have a look at your transmission. See where the bolt holes are. That helps tremendously in knowing what to do. Best tool ever invented is the one between your ears. Once you get out the bottom row, work on these starter bolts. Same difference. Now, these bolts will be a little bit longer than the others. Yikes. Always the top one, of course, that wants to hang up on you. Yep, it's always the top one that wants to hang up on you. One of these on the bottom, that is easier accessible. I already took them out. I made a mistake. One of these stays in. I'm going to put that one back in. I shouldn't have taken that one out. Oh, you can't see nothing. Yeah, you can. We'll put that one back in so our case doesn't split prematurely. Anyway, back onto this one. Yikesy, that one is tight. We can't do no power tool on that one. Can for a little bit. Oh, the wrong way there, fella. Hold it off to the side. Don't put the ratchet all the way on there, and don't mess up your bolt either. But a lot of times that'll get it where you want to go. So, lift's a little bit tall for me. I'm sure you've noticed. I've been stretching it. But anyway, that's all that row right there. Well, let's see where we're going to go from here. All right, we've got the drive shafts are still in, so I'm going to work on getting the carrier bearing that I showed you. I'm going to work on getting that one off and pause the camera back up, or this will be a super long video. When you pull the first CV axle out, now is a good time to note your plug-ins right there. All right, they'll have to come out. Do it then and there so you don't forget. This is what I'm looking at here, okay? So these are the two plugs we want to get out. Note to self, don't get them reversed. No, not a magic trick. Don't get the wires reversed. Mine has a green band on it for this one. Well, let's keep going for just a second while I'm up here. Another one on top. Okay, so you got a plug here. These are the cooler lines. You'll have to undo that. This is where the shift cable sits. It's a lot easier to see it down here. You'll only be removing these two bolts on top. And of course you've got to get this honking plug over here out of it as well. Now, I might be embarrassing myself and struggling with that because I can never really do anything with them. I always forget the way they're supposed to fold, and it's aggravating sometimes, but anyhow, there it goes. It kind of got to force this tab down, and it never really works out the way you're supposed to, or it's supposed to, I should say. You had it just a second ago. There it is. So there's little detents right there, hooks in. Weird how they done it. The easiest thing to do is pull on the wire. Don't yank on the wire, but pull on the wire and wiggle them out at the same time. That's the easiest way that I found for it to come out. I'm going to keep it going over here for right now, so we don't have to go through that again. The bracket here is loose. The 1, 2, 3 bolts here I've already taken out. Mind you, one, make sure the camera is picking it up, sorry. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 bolts over here on top. We've got the 3 bolts up. 1, 2 on the side here, 3 bolts there. That's for another mount. Debatable or not. This here to me is an insulator. I'm gonna take that off. That now is highly debatable. Some people might go, you might not see what I'm pointing at. This. That to me is an insulator that heats the transmission up. I don't know if I'm good with that or not. I generally take them off and not put them back on, but I don't know. Like I said, it's debatable. It's probably going to be an argument, but whatever. The requirements on a salvage transmission is you do have to remove the pan and replace the filter, obviously. And moreover, what you're going to want to do is the transmission lines, once you have them off, they have to be, the cooler has to be flushed. Anything that's inside the transmission, in the old transmission, is in that cooler. What's in the cooler is going to go in the new transmission. All right, so I'm going to pause you back up. Now you know everything about the housing and the transmission itself. Sorry about the camera, me wiggling around. Of course, we got sunlight now. Here we go. One thing I forgot to mention, when you get this, if your salvage transmission has a plug on it, when you get the plug off on your salvage transmission, that is, make sure that this connector here is dry on the inside. Make sure there's no transmission fluid in there or anything like that, because if that's the case, that harness will have to be replaced or get you another unit. One more thing, almost forgot. I just pulled these clipped lines, cooler lines out. This is a good idea. Lubricate, if you have an assembly lube, lubricate your O-ring in here and put the little Jesus clips back in it, or the little clips that hold these in. You can put them in the fitting. They go in before you stick the lines down in there. They'll snap in place. Just almost forgot. Close your holes off as well. All right, last but not least, if you're fortunate enough to have a transmission jack, use your salvage unit and play with it. Set it on there, figure out how you got to set it, how it's got to set on there. That way, before you even start, you won't have to do it underneath the vehicle. You already know where to put it, so it'll hold it the right way. All right, so I'm going to show you. Sorry about the camera. I'm going to show you this one on and off the camera. On and off the camera. On and off the vehicle. This bolt right here. And that one right there. All right, do you see it done from the top? Are you helping? That bolt is, I'm going to try to show you where that lives. Right there. Right there. Now, note, I will say this. Now, to get this carrier bearing and that stub here, that stub shaft out of it, now that's a little bit booger to get the carrier bearing undone. It can be done without removing the exhaust, but in some cases, I would almost say that you may be better off to go ahead and pull the exhaust. I don't. Like I said, it's a little bit of a struggle to get them out, but I think it's going to be faster than having to contend with the rusted exhaust bolts. So, anyway, pause you back up. Okay, we're going to talk about some stuff. I'm going to tell you the same thing the way I tell it in other videos. You don't like to hear me talk? Hit the road, Jack, and don't come back no more. So, this is important. 3 bolts in the very back for the bracket that I showed you on our salvage unit. There is these 2 bolts. They're right up here. They're very accessible, very easy to get to. Chrysler has a ton of these push lock wire clips, whatever you want to call them things. I don't know what you call them, but they're basically a zip tie with the push ends. And if you have an older vehicle, you might want to buy some. They're readily available on Amazon, everywhere, various sizes. You can get packages of them that accommodate just about any make model. As you can see here, the air cleaner is out of it. The air cleaner housing is out of it, I should say. My transmission lines have been undone. They're tucked over here behind the fuse box. I didn't undo everything else. Now, there is a ground up here with a lug, and all of that is undone other than the 1 bolt in the very center of the transmission over here. That one is still in it. Now, naturally, the way it wants to come out is by falling out, bending out this way. That's why I said you need to leave that bottom bolt in. That 1 bolt will hold this assembly no problem at all. I promise you. Shift cable. There's a clip in there. You just lift that clip out. There's 2 ears. You push them. You collapse those ears and push the shift cable toward the cab. And that releases that, so you don't have to do anything else. Make sure that you undo your plugs up on top of it. That's a main thing. Make sure that you undo all these clips and get your main harness unclipped. That's important. The oxygen sensor does not have to be, you don't have to undo it because it's on top of the bracket. You can leave it alone, you can leave it sitting. Everything else on the transmissions, unless I'm brain farting and forget something, is now undone with the exception of the motor mount that is here in the front, and it's it's easily accessible. So the rear bolt comes out, the front bolt I'm going to leave in it in my case. But here is the thing. Because I'm on a lift, it is hard for me to think the way you need to do this on floor jacks or something like that. This is just basically telling you what will have to be removed. And that, I think we've covered everything. I don't think I left anything out. I'm fairly certain that thing is now ready to drop out. As you can see, I got you may not see, I got the coolant hose here plugged off. I got the radiator plugged off. We lost a little bit of coolant, but it's not much. Not much at all. Center bolt, getting ready to turn it out of there, break it loose, turn it out. Like I said, naturally the transmission is going to want to bend apart like that. That's the reason I left the bottom bolt in, so it cannot bend that way and possibly hurt something else in the process. We got this one. We got, and this is 15 by the way, then we got one more 13 for another bracket right beside it. Missed that one. I thought I had that out, but I did not. In any event, doesn't matter. If I could find my 13 mil socket, that would be great. That would be awesome. But I think I may have dropped it in the floor as well, so I don't know. We got another one. We'll see about getting this. Keep in mind that all of this is pretty simple to access. There's a wire bracket. I undid the wires. I undid them prior, obviously. Now, I don't know if this will break it loose or not. These are pretty tight, generally pretty tight anyway. It would surprise me if it wasn't. Not too bad. None of this here is really in the way. I don't generally worry about it too much. I'll give you, well, let me give you a close-up so you can, I guess, kind of imagine what that whole setup will look like. So we got all these wires loose. The oxygen sensor can be, that can stay there. Mind that wire right there. That's the plugs I showed you earlier. These will interchange, and they don't need to be interchanged. You need to remember where they go. Mark them with a paint marker if you have to. Do something to identify your wire. Anyway, one more 18 on top. At least I think it's 18. That is 18, 100%. For whatever reason, it feels like these bolts are very poor quality. My sockets just don't fit them correctly. I don't know what is going on right there, but the sockets don't seem to fit them real good. And I can't say that I've ever had that happen before. Okay, so that part is loose enough to do the power thing. Careful now that you got a lot of weight hanging on that now. So, I will be using a step ladder to get up there with an impact and pop them loose. I know this is a longer section of the video, but anyway, that is important to know all this. Now, I'm going to go back underneath and position my jacks. Before I even begin, it's worth mentioning there is that wire where I unplugged them two plugs on the side of the transmission I showed you earlier. There's also a hanger on that. I didn't unclip it yet. Them things are all over the place. I don't know how many there are. There's probably a good 15 of them. All right, so first and foremost, I'm going to say this, safety first, okay? I'm going to wiggle and jiggle and all that good stuff around on this transmission. So I got jack stands under all the, I got one in the rear, I got two underneath the front arms, and then I got one of them here to hold the engine in place because that assembly is obviously just hanging there. Now, under normal circumstances, I would not be using a chain like this, but I kind of have an emergency because I don't know if I released a video saying that I got a parts washer, so the parts washer is still in its temporary home, and with the parts washer being in its temporary home, I can't get to my transmission jack. So, that being said, I had to use, unfortunately I had to take the hood off, which takes a couple of seconds, but anyway, I had to roll my A-frame up here and put it on the chain. Like I said, I normally would not do it that way, but, you know, that's just what it is. In this case here, we'll just have to do what we got to do. I mean, that ain't the right way to do it, but obviously it's going to work fine. My little tractor doesn't have enough oomph to actually lift the parts washer so I can move it. My new tractor is not ready yet, so I'm kind of in a pickle, but I'll do it this way. Which is not right or wrong. Before something bad happens, I'm going to go ahead and put the bracket back on the torque converter. You'll know what I'm talking about here in just a second. I got these very nifty clips that you get in the salvage yard. I highly suggest you put them right back on. Well, that's going to hold that torque converter in there. At least you ain't going to have that darn thing rolling out on you, making a mess. Well, that's exactly what's going to happen if we don't. I know something happens somewhere to where this thing is going to come undone, and it's not going to be good. So, the little green tape, I don't know if the camera can pick it up right now, that's the inner plug. I noticed, I noticed a green tape on there, so I didn't have to mark anything, and ouch, that hurts. Well, actually, I'm going too low, so back up. Having a jack with an oil pan is fine. If you want to, put a block of wood or a piece of plastic or rubber, better yet, whatever you got. Whatever you got to work. You got me my roll around. I got me my roll around little table right here. I got a chain that's not sitting real good. Actually, I would have thought it might have a chance to bend that lever right there, but really it didn't. Not an ideal place to hook it up, but I think I'm going to flip the table around and just go right back in with it. By the way, I want you to note something. I don't know if if it's been messed with. This is a 19. I don't know if it's been messed with or not. Some of these transmissions come with the covers on it that I found. Some of them come with covers on it. Some of them don't have them. This one here does not have them. I don't know if somebody previously removed it or if it literally does not come or did not come with it from the factory. So here we are. Anyway, I figured I'd throw that in there. The new one, I took the cover off of it because I think it'll stay cooler that way. That's the way I'm going to go. If you have any reasons to say the cover should be on there, let me know in the comment section. Honestly, no more than what it did. I'm not afraid to put that right back in the same place. Use this instead. All of your transmission jacks, of course, they're adjustable, side to side, front to back. The only one downside about using a chain fall setup like I got here, they're a lot more powerful than what most people give them credit for. So you got to be careful pulling on it because you can really mess things up. I'm going to pause you up. I'm going to do some investigating. So this whole entire time, I've been putting bolts in, and all the while I was drawing it up, I made sure that the torque converter spun the whole entire time. It never bound up, never anything like that. So it's kind of something you want to look at and make sure that's not something that's going to happen to you that could potentially be problematic. Sorry about the light. Like I said, this torque converter is nice and free in there. It spins just as easy as it did when I took it out. I've got it on a jack stand. I'm going to take this chain off of it now. We've got enough bolts in it. So anyway, transmission back in the vehicle. Yeah, it's been a little bit, so getting dark outside. So anyway, I'm going to pause you back up. So the rear mount bolt, that bolt, sorry, you can't see nothing. That bolt up here, I've got it back in. However, do not tighten that up. That bolt gets tightened whenever the bracket is tight up top. We'll pull the brackets up top. We'll suck it up first and then we'll tighten the side. It's touching, but it's touching only enough that it still has the ability to slide up. The last thing you want to do is bind any aluminum brackets. Eventually they'll stress and crack, and that's something we don't want. Alright, so I'm going to have to hold the camera now because I think my tripod finally gave up. I've had it for a long time, but anyway, so I've got mounting bracket here bolted up. I got those two bolts put back in the mounting bracket here. Now I can go, later on I have to go underneath and tighten up the third one. But basically I don't have the top bolts in yet, as advertised before. Honestly, I may even skip that part for right now and then go underneath first, get that buckled back up, and then come back to the top, just because. But for right now, we're going to make this part 1 because it is getting late, I'm hungry, and I'm quitting. We see you on part 2.